The Torture House of Louisville. The Gates, Heaton Case, 1924. In the spring of 1924, Louisville, Kentucky, was a city comfortable with routine. Businessmen hurried to offices, families settled into dinner as dusk arrived, and the police expected little more than the usual Saturday night disturbances. Nothing suggested that one quiet West End house would soon expose one of the most disturbing crimes in the city's history, a crime not born of rage or greed, but of obsession, paranoia, and a slow descent into madness. At 6:30 p.m. on March 8, 1924, a telephone rang at police headquarters. "A man has been shot," the voice said urgently. "You'll find him at 637 South 34th Street. Within minutes, patrol cars were racing through the streets. Officers arrived to find a small crowd gathering outside an otherwise ordinary residence. The house stood neat and unremarkable, giving no hint of what waited inside. Upstairs, in a back bedroom on the second floor, police found Richard Heaton, 33 years old, lying dead beside a mattress placed directly on the floor. His wounds were unmistakable, one bullet through the neck, another near the heart. Blood had soaked into the mattress and floorboards. But it was not the body alone that unsettled the officers. The mattress was surrounded by steel staples driven deep into the floor, positioned so that arms and legs could be secured wide apart. Around the room lay an array of surgical instruments: scalpels, forceps, sutures, trays, rubber gloves, rubber sheets, chloroform, disinfectants, gauze, and bandages. Nearby were 3 watertight boxes, a butcher knife, a hatchet, and a container of sulfuric acid. The scene suggested something far worse than murder. It suggested preparation for torture, mutilation, and disposal. The house would soon earn a grim name in newspapers across the country. The Torture House of Louisville. Richard Heaton, a respectable man. Richard Heaton was not a criminal. He was a well-known, respected Louisville businessman, a partner in the brokerage firm of Heaton and Fisher. He lived in a comfortable home on South First Street with his wife, Mary Lee Heaton, and their 2 young children. To neighbors and acquaintances, the Heatons appeared to be a stable, prosperous family. Richard was described as intelligent, capable, and ambitious. No one suspected that beneath his outward respectability, his mind had been slowly unraveling. Mary Lee Heaton was young, refined, and composed. She had eloped with Richard years earlier, when she was only 15, and despite the unconventional beginning, their marriage appeared happy for a long time. But several years before the shooting, something changed. Richard became suspicious, then obsessed. Without evidence, he convinced himself that his lifelong friend Bill Gates was having an affair with his wife. Gates denied it. Mary Lee denied it. But denial only strengthened Richard's belief. What began as jealousy evolved into something darker. Heaton brooded constantly, accused his wife relentlessly, and began to monitor her movements. Eventually, he hired a female private detective to follow Mary Lee everywhere, answer all phone calls, and prevent her from contacting anyone without supervision. Mary Lee was, in effect, a prisoner in her own home. Bill Gates was 31 years old, a salesman employed by Procter & Gamble, working out of Indiana but well known in Louisville. He and Heaton had grown up together, played together as boys, and remained close friends into adulthood. Gates had no idea of the depth of Heaton's obsession. On Thursday night, March 6, Heaton telephoned Gates and asked him to come to his office. It was a routine request between friends, and Gates thought nothing of it. He arrived unarmed, except for a small Derringer pistol he habitually carried and forgot he had. As Gates stepped into the office, several men suddenly seized him. He was overpowered, handcuffed, and searched. His main weapon was taken, but the Derringer, hidden inside his vest, was overlooked. Without explanation, Gates was forced into a car and driven across the city. They entered an alley behind a house on South 34th Street and took him inside. Heaton led Gates upstairs to a rear bedroom. There, the true horror began. Gates was forced to lie on the floor. His arms and legs were stretched apart and chained to steel staples embedded in the floorboards. A mattress was placed beneath him. His captor moved calmly, methodically, like a man performing a routine task. As Gates lay restrained, he saw the instruments laid out nearby. At first, he did not understand. Then realization struck with devastating clarity. This was not a beating. This was not intimidation. This was preparation for surgery, against his will. Heaton produced a can of chloroform, soaked cotton, and placed it over Gates' face using a funnel. Gates managed to hold his breath, feigning unconsciousness until Heaton removed it. Lying motionless, Gates listened as his former friend handled the tools, fingering them with disturbing familiarity. Heaton spoke softly, almost kindly at times, but his calm only made the threat more terrifying. Gates understood then that his life depended on whether Heaton decided to stop or finish what he had planned. During Gates' captivity, others entered the house. William A. Fisher, Heaton's business partner, visited and saw a man restrained on the mattress. Heaton assured him that the man was merely being scared and would not be harmed. Fisher believed him, or chose to believe him, and left. Hade Conrad, a theater organist and acquaintance, was also present at times. He sensed something was wrong but did nothing. No one contacted the police. Their silence nearly cost Gates his life. For nearly 2 days, Gates remained restrained, uncertain whether each moment would be his last. Heaton deprived himself of sleep, packing, muttering, and handling the instruments repeatedly. At times he was calm, at others, visibly strained and unbalanced. Gates later described the mental torture as worse than the physical restraint. Every sound, every footstep, made him believe the operation was about to begin. He feared chloroform would render him helpless while Heaton mutilated him. At one point, Gates bluffed, claiming he had written letters stating Heaton intended to kill him and mailed them to relatives to be sent to police if he disappeared. The claim startled Heaton and bought Gates time. But Gates knew time was running out. On Saturday evening, Heaton decided to restrain Gates again after briefly unchaining him. To do so, he had to unlock Gates' handcuffs. That moment saved Gates' life. As Heaton leaned forward, Gates reached into his vest and drew the derringer. "Put them up," Gates commanded. For an instant, Heaton froze. Then his expression changed, fear, rage, disbelief, and he reached for his own gun. Gates fired both barrels. Heaton staggered, spun, and fell. The nightmare ended in seconds. Escape. Gates ran. Still wearing one loose handcuff, he raced downstairs, shouting for help. He encountered Mary Lee Heaton and told her he had shot her husband and was going for a doctor. He fled into the street, barely aware of where he was going. He boarded a streetcar, jumped off, ran again. His thoughts raced wildly. He believed his mind was breaking under the strain. Eventually, Gates reached relatives and collapsed from exhaustion. By morning, he realized his mistake. He had acted in self-defense, but by fleeing, he appeared guilty. After speaking with family, he decided to surrender. Investigation and judgment. When Gates arrived at police headquarters, he was pale, shaken, and desperate to tell his story. He gave a full statement under oath, describing his kidnapping, imprisonment, and escape. Police examined the house again. Everything Gates described was there. The staples, the restraints, the instruments, the chloroform. Fingerprints confirmed Heaton had handled everything himself. Medical findings confirmed Heaton had been shot while advancing toward Gates. The conclusion became unavoidable. This was self-defense. A coroner's jury absolved Gates. A judge dismissed all charges. Gates walked free. Frank Cordell, the private detective who assisted in the kidnapping, received 60 days in jail. Conrad was eventually released. Fisher faced no charges. The Gates-Heaton case shocked the nation. Newspapers struggled to describe it without sensationalism and failed. Public fascination lingered for years, not because of violence alone, but because of what it revealed about the human mind. Richard Heaton had not acted in sudden passion. He planned carefully, rented a house, assembled tools, and prepared for torture. He believed himself justified. Bill Gates survived not through strength, but through luck, nerve, and a forgotten pistol. And Louisville learned that the most terrifying crimes do not always come from criminals, but sometimes from respectable men who quietly lose their grip on reality. The torture house was abandoned, the case closed. But for those who knew it, it was never forgotten.